All right, welcome to the Hill on NewsNation, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber, filling in for Blake Berman. Well, it is the story that is not going away. Political fallout over the Epstein files, how the president is going on the offense. A new lawsuit filed against the publisher of the Wall Street Journal within the past hour, and Attorney General Pam Bondi has taken action about the Epstein grand jury transcripts. Also, why a key Democratic senator is claiming Pam Bondi pressured the FBI during the Epstein investigation. Plus, just 1 year after the assassination attempt in Butler on Trump's life, we are going to be talking to one journalist who was there on that day and ask what she thinks about Trump's recent health issues. Meanwhile, yet another Biden aide pleads the fifth as lawmakers continue their investigation into the former president's mental acuity while in office. And stick with legal. Sanctuary cities, they're on notice that Trump's border czar saying the administration plans to flood the zone, ruling out any amnesty for illegal immigrants, blaming sanctuary cities for putting communities at risk. And we're going to begin tonight with two big legal issues that are raising right now in the nation's capital. I'm the legal guy. How can I not talk about this? So first, the Epstein case, and then House Republicans' investigations into the mental acuity of former President Joe Biden. Now, NewsNation's Tom Dempsey is joining me live from Capitol Hill in a moment on the latest Biden aide to plead the fifth. But first, we're going to go to Joe Khalil, who's live from the White House with the latest on the Epstein fallout. Joe, roller coaster of a day. What do you have for us?
Yeah, a lot of news coming at us, Jesse, in just the last 80 minutes or so. Let's start with this. President Trump has officially sued the Wall Street Journal, its parent companies, Rupert Murdoch, and the two reporters that reported on that story about this alleged letter that President Trump gave to Jeffrey Epstein for his birthday with some adult content in it. The Wall Street Journal not publishing that letter, but writing about it. President Trump had vehemently denied it ever existed. He said on Truth Social last night that he was going to file this lawsuit. He officially has done that. This is President Trump's post here, basically warning the Wall Street Journal and Murdoch if it published, they would be sued. That is what happened. The other big story that now the Attorney General has officially requested that documents, testimony be unsealed from the grand jury relating to Jeffrey Epstein's case. Jesse, this comes as there has been a ton of pressure for them to release more. Some critics of the administration say that information that's in those documents isn't going to hold the people accountable that need to be held accountable, and that it's just a symbolic gesture. Nonetheless, the first step toward that transparency. So that is what we have seen today. A lot of this happening. And Jesse, this has been in the news, obviously. Democrats have been pushing it to keep it alive. But today, the White House going on offense, also keeping this story in the headlines.
And from the DOJ, they haven't changed their position on their conclusions regarding the Epstein case, but they said, like you said,
right,
in the matter of public transparency, they're pushing for this. We'll see if a judge signs off on it. Joe Khalil, thank you so much. And now we're going to go over to Capitol Hill. We have a third Biden aide who has now pled the fifth. Annie Tomasini, this is former President Biden's special assistant, declining to answer questions about Biden's mental acuity and use of the auto pen during her deposition today with House Republicans. Our Tom Dempsey joins me now live from Capitol Hill with the latest. Tom, what happened?
Hey, good evening from the Capitol, Jesse. Look, hours after these proceedings took place, House Oversight Committee Republicans actually released video of this deposition of longtime Biden aide as well as the former deputy chief of staff, Annie Tomasini. She had this deposition earlier today, but pleaded the fifth, like you said, declining to answer a number of questions, all revolving around former President Biden's age and health while in office. Here's what she had to say. Take a listen.
Ms. Tomasini, did Joe Biden, a member of his family, or anyone at the White House ever instruct you to lie regarding his health at any time, including but not limited to in your testimony to Congress today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Now, that was just one question and answer right there, but that was really the case throughout that deposition. Tomasini facing questions not just about former President Biden's mental health and age while in office, but also faced questions about former President Biden's handling of classified documents during his term, as well as the Biden family business dealings. But we saw House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer release a statement shortly after all this, again, really digging into this investigation and talking about an alleged conspiracy through it all, saying, quote, there is now a pattern of key Biden confidants seeking to shield themselves from criminal liability for this potential conspiracy. So again, there's going to be more interviews coming up. We're talking about, former White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, former chiefs of staff of former President Biden, some very notable interviews coming up. On one side, Republicans saying that there was sort of a conspiracy to conceal this cognitive decline of former President Biden. That's in the words of House Republicans. But on the other side, Jesse, Democrats saying this is all just a big waste of time. Jesse?
Tom Dempsey, thank you so much. You think we got a lot to talk about? So with me here right now in the studio is attorney Bill McGinley, former Trump White House cabinet secretary. Good to see you. Thanks for coming here.
Great.
We had all these stories happen today because we knew you were coming on set. Let's talk about the Wall Street Journal lawsuit. If we could put it up, this is number one. This was President Trump earlier on in the day saying, I look forward to getting Rupert Murdoch to testify in my lawsuit against him and his pile of garbage newspaper, the WSJ, Wall Street Journal. That will be an interesting experience. Think he's got a case here?
I do think he's got a case, and I'm glad that he actually filed it. When you begin to learn more about the reporters that were actually putting this story out, some of them have some connective tissue to some of the scandals that we've seen in the past, whether it's the Russian hoax or others. And so if the President of the United States got on the phone with the Wall Street Journal and denied the letter, they wouldn't produce the letter. They still haven't, nobody has seen the letter that they're referring to. I think he's got a great case. I think the Wall Street Journal.
Why would they do it?
I think somebody was feeding them information and they decided to run with it. This reporter may have an axe to grind, but I think at the end of the day, what we're seeing here is a contrast in transparency. You're seeing Biden aides take the fifth, and I'm sure we'll get to that.
Oh, we will.
Versus a president of the United States instructing his attorney general to go to court to release more information. I like that contrast for President Trump. I think he's doing the right thing, not only with the lawsuit, because we'll learn a lot in that, but also in the proceedings that General Bondi filed today to try and get more of the grand jury evidence out there.
Let's talk about that. Okay, so I don't want to put this up too. This is another statement from President Trump. Again, a lot of conversation about Jeffrey Epstein, but said, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetrated by the Democrats should end right now, and she has signed off on it. It does become a question if the judge will do it. Now, that's the part here. I don't really understand what new information we're going to have, because my understanding would be if you're releasing grand jury materials about the criminal case of Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell, you might not be getting the Epstein list or any of the information people are looking for here. Am I wrong?
You're not necessarily wrong, but I will say this. I mean, the Epstein matter for MAGA goes to the deeper question of how the deep state has continually battled Trump. And there's a lot of allegations out there on the podcast and every place else that really what this is that they're trying to protect the people who have been propping up Biden, propping up Obama. My position is that I think if there is information that can be released, these victims deserve justice, but we also need to protect them. And I think that this lawsuit is going to trigger a fairly complicated process regarding redactions and other things so that
the judge would actually do it, would release everything or redact a bunch?
I think they're going to probably redact.
But the judge also depends to sign off on it.
Yeah, but I think it also depends upon the judge that you're going to draw. I also want to make this point. You know, the Democrats jumped on board of the transparency bandwagon. They had the DOJ for 4 years, right? They could have released a lot of this stuff. And if you thought that there was any damaging information about Donald Trump, you don't think Merrick Garland and Chris Wray and some of the others would have gotten that out there, especially after he became a candidate?
That's a fair argument. Dick Durbin coming out to say that we have information that the FBI was told to flag any mentions of Donald Trump by Pam Bondi in the Department of Justice. Now, that's quite a statement to make. You could say flagging doesn't mean anything. It's flagging. If we see something, then we'll know what to do with it. But other people look and say, why are you flagging specifically for Donald Trump? That looks suspicious.
Well,
again, we don't know if that allegation
exactly.
is true.
And, you know, what Dick Durbin said today, what Senator Durbin said today reminds me of the Russian hoax when Adam Schiff was running around saying, I've seen the evidence. I can't disclose it to you. I can't show it to you because it's classified, but I've seen it and it's damning. We now know that that was wrong. That was false. He was not telling the truth. And I feel like the Epstein matter that we're looking at right now is just the Russia hoax repackaged as the Epstein matter, trying to unfairly target Donald Trump by making allegations that he did something when there's zero evidence that that's the case.
I could talk for 30 minutes about Epstein, but before I let you go, I have to ask you real quick about another aide pleading the fifth. And by the way, we're talking about all these people maybe potentially testifying. Isn't Jill Biden the most important person to potentially testify about her husband?
Well, I think Joe Biden is. I think that there are certain things that would have to be worked out with the Congress before she would ever sit for an interview.
Marital privilege.
Marital privilege, but other things. But remember, the Congress is not litigation. When you testify before a congressional investigation, it's not litigation. So the rules of evidence and rules of procedure don't apply. But I think eventually what's going to happen, if we want to get to the facts of what's going here, there may be some deal between the House Republicans and the DOJ for some sort of limited immunity so that they have to testify.
Yeah, you might be right there. All right, we'll see. I could have, again, talked to you for 30 minutes. Good seeing you, Bill McGinley. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, coming up, I always said a lot happening tonight. So a moment etched in American history when a gunman almost assassinated Donald Trump. I'm going to be speaking with veteran journalist Salena Zito. She was in Butler, has written a new book. It's being made into a movie, actually, and she's going to take us inside his mind about the shooting and his recent health diagnosis. Plus, flood the zone. Federal authorities sweep the U.S. with immigration raids. So what's happening to those without criminal records and why there's a split in the GOP over amnesty? And it's really no laughing matter. President Trump weighs in after CBS cancels The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. We're going to talk about it. We'll be right back. And welcome back to The Hill, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber in for Blake Berman. Well, President Trump's health is still a center focus today following his diagnosis of chronic venous insufficiency. This is a common condition for individuals in their 70s. Now, this is what happens when the veins in the legs don't allow blood to flow back up to the heart as it normally would. Some symptoms include swelling in the ankles and bruising. A White House official tells NewsNation the president will, quote, continue to maintain a robust schedule like he always has. Now, Trump is 79 years old. He ties the record for the oldest person to be sworn into office at the end of his second term. The president is going to be the oldest serving U.S. president. He's also survived 2 assassination attempts, by the way. Can we forget that? I mean, can you believe last week marked 1 year since the attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania? And the president reflected on it.
God was protecting me. Maybe because God wanted to see our country do better or do really well, make America great again. I don't like to think about it much. You know, I have a job to do, so I don't like to think about it much. It's a little bit of a dangerous profession being president.
So here's the question. What is going on inside the president's mind right now? Well, hopefully to help answer that, we are joined by Salena Zito, journalist for the Washington Examiner. She has been covering the president for years, and she was at Butler 1 year ago. She's also the author of the book Butler, The Untold Story of the Near Assassination of Donald Trump and the Fight for America's Heartland. Salena Zito, thank you so much for coming on. I want to put up real quick, if we can, a segment of your book, actually a quotation from your book. I think it really encapsulates really well what the shooting was like. This is number 1. And as we look at that, how has his view on life changed? Because clearly it changed him.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, President Trump, you'll find out in this in the book, I was supposed to interview him that evening. I was in the buffer. I was so close to him because we were traveling to Bedminster from Butler to do the interview. And he called me the next morning. And the first thing he asked was, are you okay? Is your daughter okay? My daughter is a photojournalist who took the cover shot. And then he apologized for not doing the interview, which I thought was crazy.
Yeah, I think he had a good excuse.
Yeah, but he went on to call me for 7 times in total. Very emotional conversations that had to do with, why did I decide to turn my head? Why did that chart come down? Why were all these decisions made? And I didn't press him too hard. Gave him the space to talk about it. And he came to the conclusion that he was supposed to have purpose from that day, and that God's hand was in that moment. And that was how he was going to conduct his presidency if he won again.
Did you speak to him since, I mean, what happened since then? The DOJ announced last November that there was an Iranian plot to kill him. There was this health condition, although it's, not serious. Have you spoken to him recently about his life as he moves now into this second chapter of his presidency?
Yeah, I talked to him 2 days ago. He was in Pittsburgh for the big energy summit, AI energy summit. Yep. And he continues on with that discussion of faith and purpose. And that's sort of how he comports his presidency. And he doesn't like to talk about the assassination attempt. It's very tough on him, in particular because of Corey Compatore losing his life.
Absolutely. And we remember that very powerful image of him kissing the helmet of Corey Compatore. Has he signaled if he's going to change his lifestyle at all? I mean, we remember very famously what his diet consists of. This is not number 2. We could put it up. Fast food, snacking, little vegetables. And then I have to say, this is one of my favorite photos of on the plane, right? Make America Healthy Again starts tomorrow. Has he indicated he's going to try to live a little bit of a healthier lifestyle, or just trucking away?
I think he's just going to truck it away. I think you watch him. He's very robust. He doesn't stop. He requires very little sleep. And this is just the comportment. And it's unusual, but it works for him. And I suspect that because this has worked for him all of his life, that he's not going to change it.
So what about the movie? What can we expect there?
Oh, the movie is great. It's already in pre-production. I can't give you a little sneak peek. Kid Rock, also known as Bob, what's his real name? He has filmed the ending credits already, and it has my cowboy boots, getting in my Jeep and driving away with the cranes from Butler, their actual cranes from Butler, and the American flag flowing in between, and it pans over to Kid Rock singing "Born Free."
Wow. Well, listen, I'm happy you're okay. I really appreciate you coming on, giving some insight, and good luck with the book and good luck with the film. Salena Zito, thank you so much.
Thanks.
You got it. All right. There's still much more ahead on the Hill. A nationwide debate heats up over immigration raids.
There will never be amnesty under President Trump. We are putting our priorities in place where he promised the American people when he ran for office that he would make America safer.
The Trump White House says it is targeting the worst of the worst. So what's next for captured immigrants who have clean records? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We're going to focus on sanctuary cities, make them priority. And why is that? Because we know their problem. We know they're releasing public safety threats every day. We're going to flood the zone in sanctuary cities. You're going to see a record number of agents in the neighborhoods and a record number of agents at work site.
And welcome back to the Hill, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber in for Blake Berman, and that was President Trump's border czar Tom Homan at the White House today, saying that sanctuary cities are the problem. And this comes amid sweeping crackdowns, particularly in California, where last week's raid in Ventura County nabbed more than 360 illegal immigrants. Our Allie Bradley has the latest on how the Trump administration's new push in sanctuary cities is playing out. Allie, good to see you. What do you have for us?
Hey, Jesse, well, I can tell you the administration isn't shying away from raids in these sanctuary states like California. Just this week, they conducted a raid in Sacramento. That's about 500 miles north of the southern border and said to be the farthest north that Border Patrol has been conducting these raids thus far. Now, Chief Greg Bovino, he's the El Centro sector chief, and he's essentially been running operations on the ground. He stood right in front of the Capitol building there, the state building there, and he literally said, he called to action, to more than 8 arrests that they made in Sacramento. That's a big one for them. One of the individuals, an aggravated felon, previously charged for fentanyl trafficking. He also said that there is no such thing as a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state. They will enforce the law and enforce these operations wherever they need to be. Now, we also heard from Governor Newsom's spokesperson in response to that video there at the state capitol. This is what Governor Newsom's spokesperson said, quote, "The Border Patrol should do their jobs at the border instead of continuing to tirade statewide of illegal racial profiling and illegal arrests." Now, for the first time since 2020, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department is actually playing ball. They're actually transferring people over. So when they're released, they actually give ICE a call and say, hey, we've got a guy for you to come and pick up. So back in 2019, under the Trump administration, the number was about 457 of these transfers. Then by 2020, dropped to 43, Jesse. So now we're seeing those transfers pick up again. No sign of slowing down in these sanctuaries anytime soon, Jesse.
Allie Bradley, thank you so much. Great reporting as always. And look, while the administration has certainly taken a hardline approach on sanctuary cities, they have gone a little back and forth of whether or not to protect certain groups of migrants from deportation, like farm workers. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem affirming the president's position with our Blake Berman at the week's Hill Nation Summit.
There will never be amnesty under President Trump. We are putting our priorities in place where he promised the American people when he ran for office that he would make America safer.
Yeah, but there's still some splintering in the president's party on the issue. A bipartisan group of lawmakers, bipartisan, okay, introduced the Dignity Act, which would allow illegal immigrants who've arrived in the United States before 2021 to apply for up to 7 years of legal status with work authorization. Republican Congresswoman Maria Salazar urging President Trump to support the legislation this week.
President Trump, sir, the same God who saved you from death in Pennsylvania 1 year ago and who put you back in the Oval Office against all odds is the same God Almighty who millions and millions are begging to for some type of dignity, not amnesty.
So how do we reconcile this? Well, here now is Texas Republican Congressman Keith Self. Thank you so much for taking the time, sir. I want to get right into it. You posted, I'm going to put it up right now. This is number one. There should be no amnesty for those who broke our laws and entered our country illegally. This doesn't mean some amnesty or a little amnesty. It means no amnesty. No amnesty light, no amnesty under a different name, no amnesty under any circumstances whatsoever. Seems pretty clear. It's just the question is, what about farm workers? What about those people who have been key to our economy?
They need to go out. They need to apply for legal status. And there is no clean illegal immigrant with a clean record. They are criminals by the very fact that they crossed our borders illegally. That's why they're illegal immigrants. The president has been very clear. He campaigned on this. It was the #1 issue, certainly in my district, and I think across the nation, that we needed to handle the illegal immigrants, the 12 million illegal immigrants that Joe Biden let into our country.
Practically, what would be the effect? I'll put this up. This is number 2. This is Representative Martin Stutzman. If you try to deport all of them, you're going to crash the economy. Now, again, if we try to make this happen and they're all subject to deportation, is that a major concern?
Well, it is a major concern that we don't need to deport all of them because they are self-deporting. We have already had more illegal immigrants self-deport over the first 100 days of the Trump presidency than they've deported. So as I've said in the past, all you have to do is be serious about this, and they will get the idea we better go back home and do it right. Look, we've got Americans that we say all the time, they don't want to do the work. And if we have jobs available, maybe they will do the work. The trades, the construction, the farm workers. We need to rebalance our workforce, replacing the illegal immigrants.
And assuming for the moment that they don't self-deport or they're difficult to find, and you have a large number now who are now subject to immediate deportation or expedited deportation in some way, practically, how would you do it?
How would you do what? Find them? Just continue to picket the issue. Just find them. And How would you deport them? We're flying them out. So that I don't understand your question. What is the bottom line question you're asking?
Well, I was saying if you have a large group of people, if you have thousands of undocumented migrants who are here, yes, illegally, part of the workforce, if they choose not to self-deport, how is it going to happen? Look, I agree that there has been tremendous success at the border. I think trying to find them in more, central locations and trying to find where they are and deport them on an expedited basis could be a little bit of difficulty. I'll give you the final word, Congressman. We have to wrap things up quick.
Wait, well, you just understand that Medicaid records were just given to DHS so they can actually figure out who are the illegal immigrants that are actually getting benefits from the federal government. That's one of the ways it's going to help.
All right. Oh, all right. Congressman Keith Self, thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so now we have to talk about this. With me in studio are Carla Sands, former ambassador to Denmark and Greenland, and Kurt Bardella, NewsNation contributor. It's great to have you both here. I'm sandwiched in between both of you right now. Kurt, I'll start with you. Your reaction to Representative Self.
I think that one of the political challenges the administration is running into is it's more about prioritizing who you're deporting when. The president's first promise was, I'm going to go after the worst of the worst, and that there's going to be a priority here so that we don't run into the logistical challenge of we can't deport 12 million people at one time. I think we all understand that's impossible to do and would be incredibly financially burdensome and have a major economic impact. So what about the most violent? The drug dealers, the rapists, all the things that Trump talked about on the campaign. What we're finding is, according to the data released by ICE, of the 100,000 people that have been deported so far, less than 10% actually fall into that category. And so I think what we're hearing from the business community certainly is, focus on the worst. Totally fine with that. Everyone should be on board with that, by the way. But before we get to everyone else, go there, because there's no backup plan to fill the backfill of workers that we'll lose.
See, Carla, here's the issue, right? We're dealing in a very economic uncertain time, particularly with all the tariff issues. And I think economic uncertainty is the last thing Republicans and the GOP need if you're going to be thinking about getting rid of or trying to get rid of a major part of the workforce.
Well, no to Republicans. If you vote for any kind of amnesty, get ready to lose the midterms. This is a huge issue for the base. They want the illegals deported. This is a non-negotiable.
In every state?
In every state, it is a majority, even across the aisle. The majority of the Americans want the illegals out. And I'll go further. We have a temporary and seasonal worker program for farm workers. So there's already a system in place. Most farm workers are either legal immigrants by birth or by becoming a citizen, or they're seasonal legal farm workers. And what we can do is just replace the illegals with legal or seasonal workers.
Kurt, do you agree with that? Because you are seeing bipartisanship with the dignity bill. I mean, what am I talking about here, particularly over immigration?
Well, and again, I think that when you look at lawmakers who have districts that have major agriculture houses in their constituency, again, there's the logistical issue of you can't get rid of all these workers at one time. It will affect the economy. It will end up getting passed on to consumers. The cost of goods, the cost of construction will go up. Those prices get passed on to the American people. It could be an economic headache for the Republicans if they don't have a backup plan and if they don't do serious reform to those programs. Those programs exist. They're overwhelmed. There aren't enough spots. There aren't enough. There's too many caps on them.
But they're using Medicaid and they're using other services that taxpayers are paying for.
They also pay into the economy by taxes.
And they're also sending money out to other countries. No, this is an issue that's non-negotiable for President Trump's base.
All right. Well, the conversation continues. You both are going to stay with me because this is the last. We have a lot more to talk about. So, okay, coming up. Dueling bombshells in Washington, D.C. today. So a top Democrat with a scathing allegation against Attorney General Pam Bondi. Did she allegedly pressure FBI agents to flag Trump's name in the Epstein documents? And did former President Obama spike intel that showed no connection between Trump and Russia in 2016? Who's making that claim tonight? The full panel is going to join me next.
A little-known actor suddenly had his face everywhere. People were skeptical.
There had to have been some coordination between these three guys.
I did not do this. The Jussie Smollett Scandal, Sunday at 7, 6 Central on NewsNation.
And welcome back to The Hill. I'm Jesse Weber in for Blake Berman. What a day. In a memo that was released today, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard accusing the Obama White House of manufacturing intelligence to create a false belief that Russia was trying to meddle in the 2016 presidential election, calling it a treasonous conspiracy. She says evidence that Russia didn't impact that election was never published. She said on social media, in part, quote, "These documents detail a treasonous conspiracy by officials at the highest levels of the Obama White House to subvert the will of the American people and try to usurp the president from fulfilling his mandate." The White House released a statement saying, quote, "The American people can finally see the Russia collusion narrative for what it really was, a total hoax and political witch hunt to distract away from President Trump's historic first term in office." Meanwhile, talking about the release of information, new accusations from Democrats about the Trump administration's handling of the Epstein files. Democratic Senator Dick Durbin says his office has learned that Attorney General Pam Bondi pressured the FBI to have 1,000 people comb through the Epstein files and to, quote, "flag any records in which President Trump was mentioned." So, both sides are claiming justice is being weaponized. Is it? Well, the full panel is with me. Niall Stanage is a White House columnist for The Hill. Carla Sands is former ambassador to Denmark and Greenland. Julia Manchester is a national political reporter for The Hill. And Kurt Bardella is a NewsNation contributor. And I feel like Blake Berman right now. Look at this. I got the whole panel here. Julia, I'll start with you. Timing is very interesting of this announcement from Tulsi Gabbard.
Timing is interesting for two reasons. Number one, we know that there has been a lot of news about the Jeffrey Epstein case and the administration's handling of that case and the backlash the administration, in particular Attorney General Pam Bondi, has gotten from members of the MAGA base. I would also point out that there has been some reported tension between Tulsi Gabbard, the D&I director, and President Trump. So there's been some speculation as to whether this could be a way she could curry favor, get back into maybe his good graces. But I think the big takeaway here is it's coming amid this deluge of Epstein news.
I only think the timing's interesting because, look, here's the thing. From a legal point of view, we knew there was an investigation that was potentially being opened against Comey and Brennan. This would further this in some way. But again, is it a distraction from what's going on with the Epstein case? You think his base is going to care about this development from Tulsi Gabbard?
I think his base is going to care, but that doesn't mean she's telling the truth, right? I mean, his base may care and the timing may be advantageous. You mentioned, for example, the John Brennan, James Comey thing. That story was leaked, and in relation to James Comey, it wasn't at all clear what specifically he was being investigated for. Here we have the White House saying, the American people will finally get to see what this is all about. Will they? What was released was very, very heavily redacted. So if there is proof of wrongdoing by anyone on either side, let's see it. But I think there's a strong suspicion that this is simply conveniently timed to distract and throw chum into the waters.
Nice try.
Well, here's the thing, Carla, right? Like, I think there's a consensus that there were tons of issues with the Steele dossier, issues with the FISA warrants. There is a back and forth about whether or not they had a legitimate basis to believe Russia was somehow involved or influencing the election.
No, that's not true.
You don't believe this change? You think this changes everything, this announcement today?
Well, this isn't really new news. They're now disclosing more. But as a matter of fact, John Brennan was keeping notes during those meetings. There's James Comey, John Brennan, President Biden, and Vice President Joe Biden were all involved in an attempted takeout of an incoming U.S. president. Hillary Clinton was part of it. They hooked up.
You believe
this
all
Russia
of this based on today or based in general? You think this
no, in general, this is true. But now D&I, Tulsi Gabbard, is releasing more information. Absolutely, this is true. It is a nonpartisan issue. This is the worst scandal in the history of our country.
Kurt, do you think Carla is jumping too much into this?
Well, I'll say that I've not seen any new information put out in the public domain to support any of that. What I do know is bipartisan investigation by the Senate Intelligence Committee, led by Republicans, by the way, at the time, concluded conclusively that Russia did try to interfere in the election. So I've not seen any evidence.
And the Trump campaign actually welcomed it.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's not to say that everything everyone said about this was right or wrong. I'm just saying a bipartisan, Republican-led committee, Senate Intel, found conclusively that Russia did try to interfere in the election.
Yeah, and it was described as irrefutable evidence by Marco Rubio at the time, incidentally, who was a
and so I'd like to see what Tulsi Gabbard is talking about. And oh, by the way, the same people now saying that we're going to put the truth out. They said they were going to do about Epstein. I still haven't seen that either.
Isn't there a difference between attempt and effect, whether they were successful or not? I mean, that's the question I think I'm having about this is, that, you know, the whole thing is, oh, they weren't successful. They weren't trying to do it. You know, that's what comes out about this. But I'm also wondering, is it the attempt or welcoming it at a certain point that I think matters more?
The attempt to do what, Jesse?
To try to influence the election. If that's the goal, if there was an idea that Russia was trying to influence at some point and Trump campaign officials were welcoming it at one point, that's the part I think there's confusion about it.
I think there is legitimate confusion about when and to what extent Russian efforts or the Russian desire to see a Trump victory collided with intentionality on the part of the Trump campaign.
They were helping
That's
Hillary
where there's
Clinton.
the issue. Now, the point is that the conclusion that Russia wanted Trump to win is not, in fact, in dispute, despite what my friend here seems to think.
Real quick, because I want to move on to Durbin.
I will just really quickly say, they tried to derail his entire presidency. They attempted to derail his agenda and the agenda of the American voters for over 2 years, even longer.
I'm curious to see what will come out of this, but then we have to talk about Dick Durbin.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is interesting because at one point we don't know what this information that he got is. We have to be very clear. I'm tossing about it. I don't really know how to make of it. A, is it such a shocker if it's true that they were flagging any mention of the President of the United States? I feel like you should. Doesn't necessarily mean that they flagged it and, like, deleted it.
Right. Look, you're seeing Democrats, I think, really obviously take advantage of this divide within MAGA world, take advantage of what's happening with the Epstein files. It's interesting because for a while, Democrats seem to dismiss a lot of this as, you know, the conspiracy theories, et cetera. But now, you know, amidst, you know, all of the developments, they're starting to obviously jump into it. I mean, you would think, obviously, the President of the United States would be flagged there. But I think the way it's being broken down is, Durbin is somehow implying that was there intent to cover for the president we'll see where that goes.
I mean, as someone who, again, I used to work the House Oversight Committee doing this exact work, and I could tell you, if we put out something and had a report that mentioned the President of the United States and didn't flag it, we would get the call for like, why wouldn't you let us know that?
Real quick, anybody believe that releasing the grand jury materials is going to solve anybody's questions about the Epstein case?
No.
Anybody? Nobody? Nobody?
Because in the filing, they specifically say that they want personal information basically redacted. So what you're going to get if this is ever released is a whole bunch of nothing.
This is about the criminal case. We know what the criminal case was. It happened against Ghislaine Maxwell. If he didn't die, it would have been very similar. All right. What a great discussion. Wow. Thank you so much, everybody.
Great job filling in for Blake.
I feel like I did okay with this. The Blake here. You guys are going to stick around because we have another topic we have to talk about. Coming up, curtain call. Yep, CBS says it will shutter the Late Show franchise next year. But is there more going on behind the scenes? And Elizabeth Vargas Reports is coming up at the top of the hour. She's going to be talking to former Jeffrey Epstein attorney Alan Dershowitz about what names we can expect to see in the unsealed grand jury transcripts. That's next at 7 p.m. Eastern. The Hill, we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber in for Blake Berman. So here are the trending stories right now on thehill.com. White House officials say the reported $2 billion price tag to reopen Alcatraz seems, quote, excessive. Costco begins pulling Pepsi products at food courts after switching back to serving Coca-Cola products. The war continues. And we're going to talk about this. President Trump celebrating CBS's end to Stephen Colbert's Late Show. We're going to talk about it. Back with me, Niall Stanage, Carla Sands, Julie Manchester, Kurt Bardella. All right, so now a lot of people are saying, Carla, well, you know, look, ad dollars they were doing terrible. I think they lost like 50%. The late night business is bad. I don't know. Some people are like, he's very critical of Donald Trump. There's a merger in the works. They think more is going on behind the scenes. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, he has Trump derangement syndrome. This man has been so ugly about President Trump, and more than half the voters voted for Trump. Why would he cut out? I think of Johnny Carson and how he was funny and he was an equal opportunity sort of comedian. He took aim at everybody, no matter what party they were in.
So, Niall, the president's saying on Truth Social, I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings. I hear Jimmy Kimmel is next. It's a concern, you know. Is this business Or is this something more?
I think this is one of these instances where two things can be true at once. It is certainly true that the cultural salience of late-night television has decreased massively, not only since the Johnny Carson era, but even the Letterman versus Leno battles that I remember when I first came to the US. That being said, Paramount caved in an absolutely abject way over the CBS 60 Minute affair, paying $16 million to settle a ludicrous case that no serious lawyer thinks Trump could ever have won. And they did it to grease the wheels for this merger that they're seeking with Skydance Media. I think both things can play into the Colbert decision.
Because, Julia, no matter what anybody says, even if they come out and show the financial statements that the show was losing money, it wouldn't matter. People would say, well, wait a second. Trump needs to approve this merger, doesn't he?
Right. It goes back to that timing. You know, the fact that this comes right on the heels of that lawsuit, the result of that lawsuit. Stephen Colbert, obviously a major Trump critic, but it also is, I think, coming at a time when we're seeing late night ratings really down across the board. You're seeing Kimmel, same thing on NBC, et cetera. So I think, like Niall said, two things can be true.
Kurt, final word?
I think anytime that you get rid of the guy who's actually winning the time slot, there's something else going on, because he's still #1 in the ratings.
You're right. He is winning, but it's just not where it was. I mean, especially with streaming, it's hard to
You can cut budgets, you can cut salaries. It's not an accident that this got announced 3 days after his monologue attacking his own employers.
All right, everybody, thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys. Were terrific. And before we go, be sure to catch The Hill Sunday with Chris Steyerwalt this weekend. This week's episode is going to feature discussions from the Hill Nation Summit between Chris and the Republican chair of the powerful House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, along with the Democratic ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Jim Himes. Chris will also be talking to the Republican congressman from Nebraska, Don Bacon, and the only meteorologist currently serving in Congress, Eric Sorensen. Did you know that? This is about the latest rescission package, a look ahead of this year's hurricane season, so be sure to catch The Hill Sunday this weekend on NewsNation at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Thank you so much for watching The Hill on NewsNation, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber. Remember to download the Hill app for the latest news and politics. We're back Monday at 6 Eastern. Elizabeth Vargas Reports starts now.